And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the next lesson. Yesterday, or whenever you last watched a video, we took percents and we changed them to fractions and decimals. Today we're going to go in the opposite direction. Chapter 9, Lesson 5, we're going to turn fractions and decimals into percents. So that is our focus for the day. And of course, we will eventually be able to use this percentage knowledge to solve problems involving percents. That is our goal in the next week or two. All right, pause the video. Come on back when you're ready. So, what do we know about fractions, decimals, and percents? We know that fractions can be turned into percents as long as they're out of 100. We can rewrite 3700ths in decimal form. And then a percent means literally per hundred, so we can write that. Now, I just want to very much emphasize the fact that all those are discussing the same quantity, just a different way of representing it. One's fraction form, one's decimal form, and one is percent form. Okay, so how would we write the following as fractions, decimals, and percents? Well, I notice here we have 3 shaded in, but 3 out of what? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. To write that in decimal form, we're going to naturally write 3/10. How do we change that to a percent? Little hint here, remember that percents must be per hundredths, not per tenths. If it helps, you may change 3/10 to 30 hundredths. You may write in an extra 0. One way or the other, you should see not 3%, but 30%. So 3/10 is the same as 3/10 in decimal form, is the same as 30% in percent form. Bottom example, 1 out of 4. Most of you know this without having to draw it out. That is 25 hundredths, which means we can then write it in percent form. Again, if you watch the drawing, watch the reveal, I changed where the squares were to make it a little easier to read, but that is 25 hundredths. Let's do another couple. Here we have 2 out of 5. Wait a second, 2 out of 5. So how would we write 2 out of 5 in decimal form? Naturally, you want to make it so that is the power of 10 in the denominator. Does 5 go into 10? Sure does. Most of you already know that. So we're going to write it as 4/10, which, by the way, would be the same as 40 hundredths. So 2/5 is the same as 4/10. 4/10 is the same as 40 hundredths. You can see it visually as well. Next up, we appear to have 20 total spots, and of the 20, 17 are shaded green. Now, how do we change that? Can we turn that 20 into a power of 10? 20 does not go, well, it does, but not well. So you would have a decimal, and we wouldn't want that. So let's forget about that. Oh, sure, 20 goes into 100. 20 times 5, 17 times 5. And therefore, we can write it as 85%. Now, I just want to point out, yes, you could have done 17/20ths. You could have gone down to 10th. And if you do that, guess what you would have had? You would have had 8 and then another part of a dime. Well, what does that part of a dime turn into? It turns into a penny. It turns into a tenth. And just to show you the visual, you can cut that down. Each of those 20 slices could be split into 5 slices, and you'd get 100 slices. 85 of them are shaded green. All right, what about decimals to percents? Well, to convert a decimal, you essentially just move the decimal place 2, but you better understand why. Don't just know shortcuts, right? What does this 0.46 mean? It means 46 hundredths. So if we move it 1, 2 to the right, that would show you why. What does that 3 mean? That means 3 hundredths. Shortcut, but you better not do a shortcut unless you really understand it. Shortcut, why though? Why is this 125%? Because this literally is 1 whole and 25 hundredths, which can be rewritten as 125 hundredths, which then shows you why it's equal to 125%. This last one, little tougher. Shortcut works out quite nicely, but again, you better understand why. 37% and then a part of a percent, almost another whole. So what does this mean? Essentially, this means 379 thousandths, but we really need percents to be per hundred. So you're going to reduce or divide both numerator and denominator by 10. That shows you why this would be 37 hundredths and then another part of a hundredth. That's why we call them thousandths. So yeah, you can use the shortcut, but you better understand what percent means. Percent always means per hundred. We got 37 hundredths and then another part. We got actually 125 hundredths, 3 hundredths, and 46. Now, what if? What if we have a fraction and we want to change it to a percent and it doesn't turn out very nice? Well, there's two ways to do it. Method number one is proportion. Method number two is division. I'll do my best to show you both ways. So first things first, set up the fraction 3 over 8 as a proportion. Remember, a proportion is a percent over 100, right? So we don't know what that percent is, but we do know that all percents are always compared with 100. Now, once you do that, you can go ahead and use your cross products, where we have 8 times n is equal to 3 times 100, or 300. And naturally, we don't want to know what 8 n's are equal to, so we'll divide both sides by 8. And we'll end up with the percent. Now the other method, that's method number one, proportions, where you set up a proportion with n over 100. Often people will write p over 100 just because we're talking percent, but that's up to you. Method number two is the division way. So what does 3 over 8 really mean? It means 3 divided 8 times. And before you start freaking out, just realize you can add as many zeros as you want. Bring a 0 down, 8 goes into 33 times. With only 6 left over, good, that's smaller than the divisor. 8 goes into 67 times. With 4 left over, bring a 0 down, 8 goes into 45 times. And what do we know now about changing a decimal into a percent? Well, we have 37 hundredths, and then we have another part of a hundredth, and look what here, 37 and a part of a percent. So that was the only time I'm going to do it both ways. Let me do another division problem. If you want to, pause and go back. Basically, what I always look at is, can the denominator be turned into a power of 10? 3 does not go into 10, 3 doesn't go into 100. So at that point, I just skip straight to division. Now, some of you already realize, by the way, you can do as many zeros as you want, but don't turn this into 20,000 divided by 3. It should still be 2 divided by 3. Some of you already know this one. You'll quickly see a repeating pattern come along. Whoops, my bad. That should have been 18. And so this will carry on. So how do we turn that? So the decimal is 0 and 66. And if you remember, we would take that divisor and we would turn it into a fraction. Some of you would prefer writing it this way, but that kind of makes things a little more challenging to turn that into a percent. We like it this way because now you can see 66 whole percent. Oh yeah, we have a part of a percent as well. 66 and 2/3. Now, yes, you're welcome to write that as 66.6 repeated percent, but really that's kind of the 5th grade, 6th grade method. I want to get you guys a little more accurate or a little representing it a different way and write 2/3. This one, does that go into 10 or 100? Oh, this one nicely goes into 100. So let's use the proportion method. And now we have 280%. You can use the division method, it'll work. You'll get 2 8/10 or 2 80/100, and you'll see that turns into 280%. But always check to see if it goes into 100. Does 9 go into 100? No, it doesn't. So I'm going to go straight into division. Naturally, we have 0 because it's not over 100%. That makes sense. 9 goes into 70. 7 times. With 7 left over. Interesting. 9 goes into 77 times. With 7 left over. And before you know it, you start seeing a pattern. So what do we have here? We have 70 in decimal form. I could write this. Take that 7 put it in the numerator, and the 9 stays in the denominator. And what does this mean? Well, we have 77 hundredths, so you have 77 whole percents, and then you have another part of a percent. That's the best way to write it. If you want to go back old school, you can put the division bar, or the repeat bar. If you wish, pause and try to figure out, I will tell you there are extras. There are extras, you won't use all of these. Try to put these in the proper place in your notebook to see if you can fit them all together. Pause, come on back when you're ready for me to reveal the answers. Here are your answers, folks. Pause and take a look at your work. Come on back when you're ready. And so we're heading into assignment 19, ladies and gents. Take your time, do well, and let's grow.